You are listening to CFRO Community Radio Station. The upcoming show, Conscious Living Radio, is a program that explores frontiers of consciousness, spirituality, personal growth, emerging paradigms in psychology, health, science, and innovative philosophies that reflect commitment to the advancement of individual, social, and global transformation.
Tanuyap. Kuiget Yuans Kuyansna. Hi everybody, my name is Kuiget Yuans. I'm a member of the Squamish Nation and the Yagalanas clan of the Haida Nation. You're listening to Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We live, work, play, and broadcast from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
Hello, and welcome to Conscious Living for January 22nd, 2025. We're into the third week of the new year. My name is Marc Caron, and you're listening to Conscious Living on 100.5 FM CFRO in Vancouver, as well as, we're all over the internet as well. We've got our YouTube channel, our Facebook channels, and things of that nature. So if you're watching there, please make sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with everything that we've got going on coming up for the next year and onwards. So today I'm excited to introduce our guest. Her name is Alexandra Brigham, and she's the owner and manager of Eternal Abundance here in Vancouver. And today we're going to talk about the importance of a vegan lifestyle and the impact that it has not just on our own health, but on the planet. So Alex, welcome to the program. Great to see you here today.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because, there's so much talk in the world today about good health, quality of our food, the cleanliness of our food, and everything that's in it. And you've been doing a lot of great work spearheading the vegan movement here in Vancouver, that the landscape has certainly changed over the years. Mm-hmm. So maybe you can start by telling us your story, how you got into, Eternal Abundance and vegan lifestyle and things of that nature. And then we'll have a conversation around how we can incorporate those things into our lives if we're interested, and the benefits for ourselves and the planet.
Yeah, of course. So back in, I think it was 2006, I was in school at UBC studying conservation biology, and I went vegetarian. I was doing a project on factory farming in one of my conservation classes as like my year-end project, and I was learning about things like the manure ponds, the gases that come off of these giant animal feedlots, and of course the kind of like suffering and everything that the animals went through in these called CAFOs, like concentrated animal feed operations, so these giant factory farms. So I went vegetarian, feeling like I had made like the right decision because I didn't want to participate in that or contribute to that in the world. And then about a year later, I had heard about veganism because I had thought like, well, dairy's fine, eggs are fine. There's no harm of the animals so much, and it was like there's a reduction in impact on the earth. But then learning about dairy, like for instance, like how a female cow is forcefully impregnated in order to have a baby so that she lactates, and then we take her milk. That's essentially what it is. It's like capitalizing a female's reproductive system so we can drink some like excretions, essentially. And then also like the whole egg industry, like the laying hens, the eggs that when they get sexed to figure out if they're a hen or a rooster, how they have to kill half of them. I just didn't want to participate in that. So that was back in 2007. I kind of had my like final Dairy Queen ice cream cake for my brother's birthday. And I thought I would just do it for a week, which became a month, which became a year. And now it's been, 18 years. 18 years coming up the end of this month. That was quite a while ago. And then back in 2010, I was working on an organic farm in the Okanagan. And my partner at the time had said to me, Eternal Abundance, which was started in Vancouver in 2003, was looking for business partners. And so being vegan myself, striving to live like a clean, organic, like earth-friendly, light-living lifestyle, I thought, oh, this is great. Like I can take my farming experience, my food experience, my like passion for health, my passion for veganism, and also my studies at UBC, and put that towards, affecting what like which local farms we support, farming practices, the style of food that we offer, and also offering people like healthy food and where they know that they can come to Eternal Abundance and they can get food that's like they're comfortable with and that we've like curated for them because we're concerned for their health, earth health, and animal welfare. So that's kind of the short of it.
Wow, beautifully said. I love the journey in terms of, when you relate to being vegetarian and the subtle differences from vegetarian to veganism, where we think, cheese and eggs is some of the things that make a difference. And as I've learned, even honey, when we think about that,
Yeah.
people think honey, well, it's no harm. Yet the bees are in a challenging situation globally right now, and they're so important as pollinators. Yet it's, a sweetener that comes from an animal. So I
Yeah.
think it's interesting in terms of the correlation and the belief systems that people have in terms of the difference between even just vegetarianism to veganism.
Mhm.
And, that being said, you also touched on, I think, the importance of, I can't remember the acronym specifically that you had put out there, but that industrial farming in terms of,
Oh, CAFO? Yeah, it's
yeah,
a term for like concentrated animal feed operation. So essentially like a factory farm.
yeah, and I think, it's something, and this is something that changed my life many years ago when I started seeing, videos and documentaries on how animals are treated in the production of our food.
Hmm.
And it's not exactly, very humane when you think about it because it's
No.
kind of capitalistic driven.
Yeah.
And these animals aren't even natural in that sense because they're full of hormones and antibiotics and all sorts of different things so that they
Yeah.
can maximize, yield, weight, and speed up, all sorts of things that are not natural.
Yeah. Yeah. They're forced into conditions where they're meant to grow at a certain rate so that they can be like harvested by a certain date, like whether it's weeks or a year or something. Like I think, for instance, like a cow, I think the natural lifespan of a cow is something like 40 years, but
Yeah.
they're killed anywhere between like 1 and 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah, which is
So,
just, it's kind of crazy when you think about the natural progression of just life for all living things. And,
mhm.
on conscious living, when we talk about, being consciousness and respecting life, that doesn't include only human beings. It
Yeah.
includes all living things.
Yeah.
And, in India, the cow is sacred and they use it in different ways in terms of, milk and production for sustenance and sustainability.
Mhm.
Yet, and this is just my opinion and observation, in a situation like that, there's a higher reverence to the animal that's providing the food versus
Yeah.
just looking at them as a meal ticket and, dollars per pound kind of a
Yeah.
thing, right?
One way, like one quote that I've heard that can kind of like shift your mindset is that like peace begins on your plate. So if you were to look at like what you're eating and like what being it came from, who grew it, like what animal, if there's a, farmer involved or farm worker, like
Hmm.
how those kind of different levels to how it got to your plate. I think if we looked at how we eat and started on the plate, that's a very different way of viewing the world. And that could really rapidly change how we interact with the world and how we impact the world as humans.
Yeah, it's so incredible, like I say, when you see these things in these factory farms and what goes on, it's really disturbing,
Hmm.
because we don't see what goes into the production
No.
of what's happening. And, when I started realizing these things, as I was saying earlier, it really impacted my life. So it's really about the quality and source of what we're consuming. And, we talk about animals. That's one side of veganism, is not eating or supporting animal, you know, products in that sense. Now we switch into talking about produce and vegetables and plants.
Hmm.
And it's one thing to get these things from the supermarket that are mass produced, they're sped up to grow, full of pesticides and things versus vegan, or sorry, organic. And it's one of the things that I really respect and appreciate about Eternal Abundance. And, like you guys have been at it there before this movement was so prevalent here locally in Vancouver, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, anything you want to add to that? Because I think there's a lot we can go down in terms of just the evolution of what we've been seeing and maybe what you've seen at Eternal Abundance.
Yeah, I mean, Eternal Abundance was started around 2003 by a guy named Ralph from Toronto. The thing with Eternal Abundance, and I guess with what we're trying to do, is just to provide, like, we feel like the world's not really headed in a great direction. It hasn't really ever been in terms of, like, you know, how we treat people, how we treat earth, how we treat animals. So we're not saying that we're going to solve everything, but we're kind of like an example of how people can live lighter on the earth, and how they can not just like go there and have something healthy, but they can also take responsibility for their health. Because, I mean, our healthcare system is not a healthcare system. There's no talk about nutrition. There's no talk about, like, you know, vitamins and minerals and alkalizing diets and the importance of food.
Well,
an example, like in early COVID, there was a post that came out from the Registered Dietitians of Canada that said, like, no food that you eat can like boost your immune system, which is total crap.
Right.
So that's a lie. Like, if there's nothing you can do to boost your immune system, why don't you just go eat white bread and sugar all day and Coca-Cola? Give me a break.
And I think, you know, if you look at naturopaths and, you know, there is a lot of great information and science that show that, you know, strong immune system is supported by good, clean, healthy living. And as, you know, human beings, you know, we are an animal, we are a mammal, there's no question to it. And we're meant to be eating real foods. And if we start going back into history, you know, we didn't have, you know, to eat meat in history was a luxury that most people didn't have. And, you know, when they started getting into production and farming and supporting community, it was all plant-based. So much of it was plant-based. And we've gotten away from that, I think, in many ways, and then the quality of it. So, you know, people who know conscious living in our show know that we do a lot of work in the spirit plant medicine realm, and plants are medicine. And I believe all plants are medicine. I spoke with a geneticist one time from UBC, and she was talking about the best pharmaceuticals in the world only really released, you know, maybe 80, 90, you know, genetic expressions. And that may change because that conversation was probably about 15 years ago. Yet she had mentioned that plants and, you know, things from nature express so much more than, say, even just a pharmaceutical. You can get up to 350, 400 genetic expressions from plants. And I think plants are the best medicine, and we need to, you know, kind of relearn the truth about good health and what it means to eat well.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we're trying to do at Eternal Abundance, is just offer things that are, like, closest to source. Like, everything that you see is going to be very low refinement. So it's, like, close to the ground, you know, close to where it was harvested from, so that it has, like, the maximal nutrition. And bringing in, I mean, that's one of the importance of local foods, not just supporting local agriculture, to have, like, agricultural economy and to have knowledge and equipment, but also to have that, like, you know, you could get celery that was harvested, maybe not at this time of year because it's January, but there's, you know, back in September, maybe there's celery harvested from Cloverdale, and it was harvested 3 days ago or 2 days ago. And so the nutrient degradation on it is a lot less than, say, what was harvested 2 weeks ago from California. So yeah, there's that maintaining that nutrition. So that's why, yes, supporting small, like, local farms, either via purchasing local at the grocery store or going right to the farmer's market. Farmer's market's going to be the freshest. That's where you're going to get, like, your maximal nutrition.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that says a lot on so many levels, just supporting your local farmers and mom and pop outfits out there that are, you know, feeling the challenges of all this industrial production.
Yeah, and the shops that are really, like, they're putting in the work, like, they're not just there to, like, make a buck. You know, like, oh, organic is a thing. People want organic. Okay, we're going to have organics at Superstore and Walmart and Choices and Save On, but the people who are actually like their hearts and ethics are behind it, like Eternal Abundance, like my friend who owns Tama Organics in East Vancouver, like they're going directly to the farms, or when they're calling the distributor, they're saying, what came in freshest, what is closest to home. Like we want to provide that to our customers because yes, we need to pay our rent or, pay our mortgage or whatever, but we want to provide this as like a service, not just a financial transaction to customers.
Yeah, and it makes so much sense, especially when I think, and this is again something that was shared with me that made a lot of sense, was the energy that goes into the growth and production of our food.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we absorb as well.
Yeah.
And, if you're just getting mass produced for the sake of profits and corporate benefit is very different than someone who grows the food. And you can sense this in your own garden. That tomato out of your own garden that's fresh or organic that you've cared for tastes so much better than
Yeah.
anything you'll get in a supermarket
Yeah.
because, it's fresh and it's full of nutrition. And the other thing that sticks to me when you talk about local farms and farmers is that, 100-mile diet where
Mm-hmm.
our genetics, we're genetically not designed in a way to be eating tropical foods in the middle of winter in Canada.
Yeah.
So it's to eat what's locally available because our body has its own innate way to, you know, process and decode and, based on weather and temperatures and everything else.
Yeah.
Why would you want those high sugary foods in the tropics where it's hot and things are different than what you
And
eat?
they're ripe, right? Like you
Yeah,
can pick them ripe, whereas they're not picked green, shipped 5,000 miles or 10,000 miles or whatever to sit in a warehouse to get trucked to a store to sit and ripen on the shelf. So you haven't had that like natural sugar development and like the associated nutrients while it's still on the tree or on the bush.
absolutely. And, you think about um, just the beliefs around veganism that it's bland, it doesn't taste good, it's
Oh, no,
boring.
not at
And
all.
that is so not true.
Yeah.
And, Eternal Abundance does a great job of that, in my opinion and experience, in the variety of different dishes where a lot of it's raw, yet some of it is cooked, but it's not, microwaved. It's not uh, deep fried or anything of that nature. It's done in a way that maintains the nutrition, adds flavor, and there's a lot of different variety that I think is
Yeah.
important for people to, experiment with. And I'm not here to tell people what to do, though I would say take a test, take a challenge, and
Mhm.
see how it feels. Don't take our word for it, because and somebody listening might think it's all a bunch of hooey.
Yeah.
However, once you experience it for 10 days, 2 weeks, a month, you'll notice that your body feels different. You might
Mhm.
lose some weight. I noticed I think differently. When I'm eating raw, clean, natural foods, my brain and cognitive function improves.
Mhm.
And I only learned that through the experience of it.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say is, oh yeah, so talking about food being bland, I mean, I grew up on like microwave chicken, microwave frozen vegetables, so with some like margarine and, really bland salad with like Kraft light Caesar dressing or ranch dressing, right? That was just like kind of like food for sustenance. It wasn't food for enjoyment. So when I went vegan, I wasn't like that good of a cook. I was a student. But it kind of forced me, like if you go into it with like an open mindset, and you're like, oh, what are all these great things that I'm going to discover? Because when you look at things like Indian food, Ethiopian food, there's a lot of great like North American food is actually great for vegan food because North American food is kind of like it's very like meat reliant. It's not very creative, I find, but like eat like Japanese food, Vietnamese food, Ethiopian, Indian, they're so flavorful. They rely on a lot of spices. So like if you go to a restaurant, you can experience that. Or if you just go online, there's so many resources. So it opens you up to like a new way of eating and a new way of like getting lentils into your diet or like split mung beans or, all these different things and so many flavors that can really like pop in your mouth and really make you go, wow, like this is really enjoyable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, there's a simplicity to it as well, I think, that makes a difference. And also the cleanliness of it. You hear all these different things about, meat in the kitchen and salmonella and
Oh yeah.
safe, even in restaurants, I think really makes a difference in regards to, just the health side of things.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, it's January 2025. Everybody, gets their resolutions and goals to be healthier and, hopefully happier and more abundant and things. And I know that Eternal Abundance supports this global movement called Veganuary. Maybe you can talk a little bit about Veganuary, what that is, what it means, and how people can maybe, experiment.
Yeah, so Veganuary, it's like a global movement so playing on the word, or the two words vegan and January. So it's like when you're starting your New Year's resolutions, your health, ways that you can live better. One huge way is that looking into more of like a plant-based or a vegan lifestyle. So one thing that I didn't mention was that like vegan isn't about like, we're not about being, saying to other people like you're not doing well enough or that we're perfect, but that like everybody can incorporate like better practices into their lifestyle just to be like better towards their health, kinder towards animal, and kinder towards the earth. Like we're never going to be perfect, but we just know that there's like a lot of good that can be done to kind of overcome a lot of like the suffering out there and the destruction. And one huge way is by being more conscientious of what you put in your body, what you consume for clothing, and looking into more of like a low impact, low consumption vegan lifestyle. So from what I understand, Veganuary, and maybe you can correct me on this, Mark, I believe it started in the UK. I don't know how many years ago, maybe like 6, 7, 8 years ago. And so it's just kind of like it's a information and awareness movement to encourage people to look into a vegan lifestyle, to try it out for a week, a month, explore like your local town, explore different online resources. And there are a lot of resources. I think it's like veganuary.com or We Are Veganuary on Instagram, I think it is.
Yeah, veganuary.com.
Just to encourage people.
Yeah, it's veganuary.com. And they have, I'm just looking at their website now, over 228 countries participating.
Oh, wow.
More than 2,100 new vegan products and menu items were launched just last year alone in the people that are working with them, and that they've got over 10,000 featured stories and recipes and things throughout that. It's an interesting website, and I think the important thing is in raising awareness that it's not about telling people what to do. It's about creating options and providing, relevant information for a healthier life. And, I think everybody could agree that, they want good health. I don't know too many people who, really say, oh, I don't care. They may talk about having good health, but their actions may not necessarily reflect it because in my experience and observations, it's that conditioning. Like you say, we rely so much on meat for our industries that these, businesses are built on it. And that's all we know. How many ways can you do a burger? And then you think about what that's doing to your body everywhere you go. And if we look throughout history, we're not meant to eat 3 meals a day on schedule, breakfast, lunch, dinner. You'd be lucky enough to get one decent meal a day in the majority of time that life has been around on this planet. And if you happen to get an animal, it was a whole different story because it was the community and everything else. Yet, everything is so meat-based that how do we do it in a good way that is, I always like to say it's got to be nutritious and delicious. And I'm a sucker. I like simplicity too, right?
Yeah.
And it can be. There's a lot of great one pots and that you can do. The stews you guys create, and I know Ness, who works in the back kitchen as well, does some great work there with the stews and soups, and the things that you create is amazing. And that's why I think Veganuary is quite an interesting movement, because for those who are curious, and if you're curious, go out and experiment and see how well it can be done. You know, you've got the walnut nori rolls, you've got spicy kimchi rolls, you've got burrito bowls, and not to mention juices and smoothies.
Yeah, and desserts. Actually, desserts are top seller.
It really is, right?
That's the thing that I found in the years, like I've been there for 14 years at Eternal Abundance, that the top thing that usually gets people in, that kind of like hooks them in, you're like, oh, try this chocolate fudge cheesecake, or try this brownie, or try this, almond-based date caramel turtle. And then that's kind of like the segue. They're like, oh, that was actually really good. Like this, maybe this whole vegan thing is like, it's okay. But, there's also lots of, there's so many, like we're kind of like the health focused place, but there's so many different options throughout Vancouver and throughout, the entire province. There's a lot more comfort food. So there's a lot of like the meat restaurants, like MEET. There's a few different locations. There's like a Vietnamese place at the street from us. Odd Burger, which I think is a UK-based franchise, just opened on Main Street. There's also a great app called Plant Curious. It's like $30 a year. But you get these coupons, and it's all digitally based, like on an app, that essentially acts like a passport. Like I think it's every 3 months or so that the deals change. So right now, like we have half price for the cafe, up to $20 off. So you can bring the app in. You've purchased it, you come in, you present it, and you say, I want to order these things. Okay, you activate the coupon, you get your $20 off, and you're on your way. And you've used that coupon, but then you get to go to, like who else? I think there's a vegan sushi place called Vegan Shoku in Kerrisdale. So yeah, there's lots of places on there. So if you're not sure where to go, there's these informational, and also, they provide you with a discount. So it's like, if you're going to go eat, why wouldn't you, take advantage of the discount, like this benefit? And then it'll lead you down that path to, exploring different kinds of cuisines and things that suit your tastes.
Well, and not to mention you meet a lot of really cool and interesting people with some great stories as well,
Yeah.
that I find really intriguing. And, to circle back to the desserts, there's some great vegan desserts out there. Like if you didn't know, you wouldn't know, and I think that's right. Like the cheesecake, the turtles, all of those things, when you realize that they're vegan, organic, and gluten-free, is really important to a lot of people. So one question I would have is the difference, because you did mention a number of different vegan eateries, which is great. And, I've frequented some of them and quite enjoyed what they serve, though not all are organic. So maybe we can circle back a little bit to the importance of organic food versus, just being vegan.
Yeah. So in terms of like earth impact, like environmental impact, impact on wildlife, so not just farm animals that we're avoiding consuming, and also farm workers. So a lot of farm workers are immigrants. Many come from like Central South America, the Caribbean. That's a lot of like the farm workers in Canada via the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. So if you're going to be buying, fruit or vegetable, not just for consumption into your own body, do you want to have pesticides applied to these crops and then have somebody handling them? Like when I worked in the Okanagan, I saw conventional farms around there. They'd wear these like hazmat suits. Hold on, my phone's ringing. Sorry. Okay. They would wear these hazmat suits, or sometimes they wouldn't even wear that. They'd just have like a scarf like triple wrapped around their face. And seeing that on like a nearby farm as an organic farm apprentice myself, I was like, I don't even think that person knows what they're spraying or the kind of hazard to their health. Like a lot of information is coming out about these pesticides, like, Bayer or Monsanto. They knew for decades that they had cancer-causing agents. And now lawsuits are coming out, like class action or individual ones. So it's like, well, if it's coming out now that there's these cancer-causing agents in there, like what other things are we applying to our crops that are going to cause health impacts down the road? Or what other things are like banned in other countries? Maybe like they're banned in Europe, but they're not banned in Canada. So it's like, well, why are they banned there but not here?
And we
Because we
see
have
a
loose
lot of that.
regulation. Yeah,
Yeah.
and because like, big ag has influence. Like they have big lobbyists that go to government and can like kind of talk down these regulations, like these health regulations. So yeah, it's like, to us, it's like vegan isn't just about not eating animals and like avoiding harming animals, but also taking the organic side to it and not harming the humans that grow for us, because it is very human labor intensive, and not not harming the wildlife that is just living in the area, like the songbirds, worms, fish in waterways, all that kind of stuff.
Well, and I think that's really important what you said in terms of, the pesticides and chemicals that are on our foods and in our foods. And, it's one thing that I'm interested to see what happens down in the U.S. is there's so many different things happening down there that's
Yeah, no kidding.
heated and a lot of controversy. But I like what RFK is talking about in terms of looking at food sources and how that all works. And so many people don't always know what's going on when you mention Monsanto and all of those kinds of things. And it leads me to reminisce about a conversation I had with the woman, I can't remember her name top of my head, but the documentary was Plastic People. And they were looking at microplastics and how dangerous that is to humanity, how it all got started as a byproduct from, fossil fuels and the oil and gas industry. And they were looking at the farms and even the organic farms, the challenge that is being had with plastics in the soil that gets leached in everywhere, and the importance of this sustainable type food production that has an impact on our health. Look at the health crisis we have in North America and other parts of the industrialized world. We didn't have those kinds of problems, as much 100 years ago, and now it's epidemic. It's crazy.
Yep.
How many people are sick all the time. And I believe nature is the best pharmacy.
Yeah.
And, we can change that by taking care of our health with exercise, sunlight, and good, clean food, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like exercise, clean water, sunlight, mental health, good food. Yeah. It's not just the food. It's like, but the food is a huge part of it, right? Like you're providing your body with the nuts and bolts that it needs. And when you strip things down and you refine them or you can them and stick them on a store shelf for 3 years due date, 2 years due date, a lot of the nutrition's gone, right? Yeah. So if you look at like a grocery store like Safeway or whatever, if you took out, I think they say like you should only really be shopping in the perimeter of the store.
Yeah.
Because that's where the fridges are. Like that's the fresh stuff, right? Which is not to say you can live entirely on fresh stuff, like depending on the time of year, or, you want crackers or chips or whatever. There's going to be some preserved stuff, but it should be like a low preservation rate.
Awesome. It's so true. And I encourage people to give it a go. And the reason I say that is because, we've got time. As long as we're alive, we have time. So what's it going to hurt to do a 10-day or, Veganuary is a 31-day challenge if that be the case. The important thing is to see how you feel and what you want to do. And I'm not out to be like all vegan or anything. I believe people have free choice, but it's to make a conscious choice based on the life you want to live, the lifestyle you want to lead. And health is one thing. The way we treat and work with animals is another. But it's the difference of how your body changes and how your mind reacts. We are what we eat. They used to teach us when we were kids. And food was different back in, the early 70s, and it started changing.
Yeah.
And you didn't see the chronic health conditions that we have nowadays, the inflammation and all of those things.
Yeah.
And there's so many. And I believe even our mental health is affected by that because we're not meant to take in all those poisons. And
like the amount of sugars that we eat.
Yeah.
That's not natural. I walked into even like Whole Foods a couple days ago, and just the first 10 feet, like a radius of 10 feet as you walk in, I was like, everything here is sugar. Like if I wanted something like a higher fat or protein, Like I couldn't find any of that. It's just like muffins, croissants, cakes. And it's very alluring because I think biologically sugar was difficult to find in nature, like as we evolved. So when you see it, it's like, oh, I want to eat that because it's high calorie, high energy. I mean, it's fast burning though, but it was a source of calories, right? But our bodies are still trained to want that, right? And then the microbes that we hold in our guts are actually sending our brain signals saying like, hey, like if you give me that treat, I'll give you a little like dopamine hit.
Exactly.
Right. So it's like, and then in a way, it's kind of neat in a way because you're like, oh, it's me, but it's not me. It's the microbes in my guts that are wanting me to that are sending me these signals to crave it, to feed them. It's like this positive feedback loop, right? But if you actually acknowledge that yes, it's within your body, but it's like these little critters that are sending you these signals, then you have that power to acknowledge it and control it.
Yeah, and our gut biome is so important because it regulates everything that happens in our body. And if that's not balanced, then we're not getting proper, assimilation, breakdown, absorption of nutrition and things of that nature. And our body,
something like 80% of the immune system lies like just below, like below the guts or something like that. Like that's huge, right? If you have that influence on your immune system.
Yeah, for sure. And, sugar, as we know, is actually more addictive than cocaine, heroin, and all of those things. The way that it lights up our opioid receptors has been proven by science now. So I think it's important to always be aware of, our sugar intake and, being mindful when you see the amount of sugar used in so many things, even a can of soda. It's ridiculous. You'd never just start scooping in all those tablespoons of sugar that you drink in one shot because you're thirsty.
Well, that's one thing also when you make food at home and you go and you make a recipe and you see like, oh, wow, like in those 12 cookies, it took 3/4 cups of sugar or whatever, right? Or half a cup of sugar. So if you know how you're making things and seeing what's going into like the amount of oil or whatever and sugar, it's once you know that, you're kind of like, oh, I'm going to back off. That's too much. But then you go to a cafe or whatever, and you just unknowingly or kind of blindly accept that what they're feeding you is okay. But you don't know those actual kind of like metrics of what's in your food. So when you get more back to like home cooking and you understand what's in things, then it kind of makes you more like all the wiser to go out and eat healthier.
Fantastic. So I know you've got some cool things that at the store and the shop. It's not just a cafe. You've got a small retail environment there that works with a number of unique and really awesome superfoods for one. The line of harmonic arch you carry and different superfoods to organic spices and all the things that you would need to make great food at home.
Yeah.
And you've got a couple of great specials. I know Veganuary is kind of almost over because we're at the 22nd.
Yeah.
But what's going on in the store that might entice people to come in, take a look, and experiment with veganism if they're not already a vegan? And if you are a vegan, something that might entice you to come in again and try something new.
Well, I guess in terms of like most exciting first. So right now it is the Hot Chocolate Festival. So Hot Chocolate Festival is like a region-wide festival. There's something like 70 or 80 different cafes that participate. It's not every cafe, of course, but so the cafes will create at least 2 drink and dessert combinations, and that runs from January 18th through Valentine's Day. So it's kind of like the chocolate time of year leading up to Valentine's Day. Also, kind of like financially for cafes, usually this is typically a slower time of year. So they're all small independent places. There's no big names like Tim Hortons or Starbucks, despite them wanting to join this festival. The idea is to, provide the public with enticing, exciting hot chocolate creations to like get together and enjoy, and also support small businesses. So in short, so right now we have we do one flavor at a time. So our first flavor is like a winter orange spice with like cardamom, orange, star anise, and a bit of cinnamon in like a dark coconut based hot chocolate with a little date square. And then on February 1st, we're moving on to like a banana bread, hot chocolate with a little like a shortbread and caramel pecan center. So that's just one option. So I encourage you to go to either Hot Chocolate Fest on Instagram or Hot Chocolate Fest. I think it's hotchocolatefestival.com online. And they've got a great orientation where you can go and get together with friends. Yeah, it's a great event. The other thing that we have going on for Veganuary is just like we have a juice and smoothie special. So people generally do like a juice cleanse in January, or they're just, they're focusing on getting more like nutrients into their body, and juicing is a great way to do that. So the more you buy, the more you save. So you save anywhere from like 10 to 20%, depending on how much you buy. And we always have like a running cafe special, which now is like I think it's a tofu, like a chicken, but it's jackfruit. So kind of like a flaky chicken texture with tofu and vegetables and a nice, really warming, savory broth.
I'll say this: the chicken noodle soup, which is not chicken. No chickens were used in this recipe.
It's familiar.
It's delicious. But I'm looking at the Hot Chocolate Festival website, and it's the hotchocolatefest.com. They're in their 15th year.
Yeah.
There's 81, as they you'd be referred to as a chalk star.
Oh, yeah.
So there's 81 local area participants, 180 flavors of hot chocolate, which is really quite interesting. So I love it because it goes to show how tasty vegan can be, and it's not loaded with sugar and crap and powder. It's all real food, like from cacao, not chocolate, which, I've learned that, the chocolate we think is chocolate today is really candy, and has no nutritional value, versus cacao, which has immense nutritional value on many levels, right?
Yeah, so like as an example, like our hot chocolate, like a friend just messaged me yesterday that had got it online, and it is like the Arriba Nacional, which is like it's like an older heritage variety of cacao that's grown, I think it's in either Peru or Ecuador. And I think it was just rediscovered about 30 or 40, like not so long ago, maybe 50 years ago. But it is like a more sustainable, like shade grow, or like, animal friendly way of growing cacao. Yeah, our hot chocolate is just like, it's like sweetened with coconut sugar and like whole dates that we soften up in like the warm, hot chocolate bath kind of thing. And then we melt the cacao paste, which is 100% cacao beans, and like grind it down into like cacao liquor, or cacao paste is what it's called. So it's very close to source. It isn't like, Dutch refined alkali treated. So it's still got like those antioxidants and different like phytonutrients in there to make a really tasty drink.
That's fantastic. And I think it's important for people to, if anything, if you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this, whenever you're listening to this, and wherever you live in the world, I think, if you get inspired to do something different, to experiment and test it for yourself again, and you'll definitely notice the difference, because just from the hot chocolate alone, the flavor is exceptional. I've heard customers talking in the store about, the difference of, clean food that tastes good and makes them feel alive, because we get energy from live foods. We get energy, when something's dead, it's got no real vibrancy. It's got, some benefits for sure, but it doesn't have the same effect as live foods. And, I know there's a place in South Florida, Hippocrates Health Institute, that does a lot of great work by healing people, and their foundation is raw, live, green, vegan, organic food. They're not feeding people, a whole bunch of crap. They are cleansing and detoxing. We wash our car. Most people take a shower every day, clean their house. They do all sorts of things, but they never clean their body from the inside out. And to me, I think that is, paramount. I work to do a cleanse at least every year. And when I don't, I certainly feel it. If I start losing energy and things of that nature, I know it's important to, hop on a green drink. The Only Greens at Eternal Abundance is one of my favorite things, because my body just responds in such a way. A good green drink is
you can feel
incredible. Every day. Every day I do greens, every day I eat differently, I feel better. And if we want to solve this, the medical crisis, part of the mental health thing, and I'm not saying it's a cure-all by any stretch, but it's the best step in the right direction for people to take, is to eat a cleaner, more conscious. And, being a show called Conscious Living, it's the awareness. Consciousness is about awareness. Are we aware of what we're putting into our body, what we're thinking about it, the effects that it has on business and people, on animals, on the planet? You look at what they're doing down in South America, burning the rainforest to create space to raise cows so they can have meat. Yet if they use that same, square acreage or hectares that they're using to grow plant-based foods, you can feed more people. It has a higher turnaround, like you can regrow it more frequently than you can for animals and things, and it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Yet we have to know that, and if we don't know that, we're being duped by, the organizations and mass media and propaganda from all these companies. You can take a look and see what Monsanto owns, and they own pretty much every food-based corporate thing out there. And we need to become aware of that. And that's how we can make much better decisions in terms of what we're going to put into our body and why we're going to do it. Yeah. And anyone who wants, good and better health, I think it's the way to go. What would you say if I were to, say something, like, do you have to be all vegan all the time? What would you say to the carnivores out there who are like, I'm not giving up meat, or, things of that nature? What would you say to them from that perspective? And I frame this in the sense that because there can be a lot of divisiveness and separation in the vegan community.
Oh, for sure.
Carnivore. And it's not, to me, it's not about beating people up about their choices, right?
Yeah. I mean, one joke, there's all these vegan memes that go around and they're like, how do you know somebody's vegan? And like, they won't stop talking about it. Like you won't ask them, or they won't wear a shirt or something. They just won't shut up about it. Right. So, and I when I was younger, I used to kind of be like the angry vegan, like, chattering away at people. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But like similar to the business, it's kind of like, you just want to give like a friendly approach and like offer options and education, and make sure they like taste good, look good. They're like well balanced. Like you have all your proteins, fats, greens, all that kind of stuff. Because, when I look at it, the majority of our customers are not vegan. If we relied solely on that community, we would have lasted all of like 3 or 4 months, many years back. People just want they want healthy food, they want clean food, they want to support local. One thing about, shopping at local shops such as Eternal Abundance is that a few of us go out of our way because we're small and we have our small brick and mortar presence, is that we go out of our way to support businesses that have similar ethics. So maybe, like one of our spice providers, they go and I think they visit like almost all the farms every year throughout the world, or like the farmer cooperatives. They're called Gathering Place. They're based on Cortes Island in the Gulf Islands in BC here. They have similar ethics. They want, fair trade, or they have like women-owned farms, everything's certified organic, really fresh. They do their best for recycling and waste reduction, all that kind of stuff. So by supporting small businesses that are like ethically based, they also go out and they like curate the offerings. So that when you come in, if you're buying superfoods from one company or spices or chocolate or whatever, there's a very good chance, like there's a reason that product is there. It's not just to fill the shelf. It's because the ethics behind the product are in line with the business that is seeking it out for you. So that's kind of, I joke sometimes that like my retail therapy, I don't buy a lot of stuff for myself because I don't really need a lot. I get to buy all these great things for the store. Like last night I ordered a bunch of chocolate and I ordered a bunch of spices and I ordered nut butters and like all these, like, I'm kind of like salivating talking about it. But anyway, sorry, back to your question about how you'd approach a carnivore. So I think there has to be, hopefully like a curiosity on their part. One great thing, like one thing that my parents really like to do is like they support what I'm doing, but it's not really like, it's a little too healthy, or like, they like their meat. So we'd go to places that had like faux meat dishes. So like I said, like the meat restaurants, they have like, the breaded oyster mushroom calamari, which is vegan. It's all mushroom based. Their tzatziki dip is like amazing. Or the tartar sauce. Just seeking out like options that are familiar, but like fulfill that kind of
like comfort food,
that
right?
idea in your head of like what you want, but maybe it's just from a different source. It's not meat based, but it's like it's a faux meat. Yeah, I think that's how to do it. And just, yeah, approaching people with like approaching them with a curiosity and like a welcome mindset. Like, oh, I don't recognize you. Like, are you new here? Why are you here? Or how did you hear about us? And just, offering like a friendly platform and place to share information and kind of encourage people to adopt like a healthier, more compassionate lifestyle.
Well, that's a nice segue for us to start wrapping up because we're nearing the end of our time.
Oh, great. I got to go to work.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're saying just about, it's not about all the time and that not all your customers are vegan.
No.
It's part of balance and bringing in, different levels of nutrition into your body so that you can.
And I think keeping in mind that like nobody's going to be perfect with. My hope is that, like, the expression, like, when you know better, you do better. So it's like when you know better for your health or you know better for the environment or for animals and there are options out there either readily presented to you or like easily accessible, then you can do better. And it's really, sometimes people say like, well, I'm only one person. How am I going to make a difference? Like the world's going to, there's so much destruction or so much pollution or this or that. And it's like, well, individually, we like collectively got to this spot. So you might feel like disempowered thinking that you're just one person. But if you saw that we got to the spot as society, then we can also take our individual actions to get to a better place and like have a better world.
Nicely said. I really appreciate the work that you do and the dedication you put into the work because I know you work hard and you're committed to the mission. And, if you're interested out there in some vegan information, vegan lifestyle, and to see the products at Eternal Abundance and their menu that they've got, you can visit eternalabundance.ca. You can order unique and specialty items from their online store where they ship.
Yeah, and shoot me an email if you want. I'll try to respond.
Throughout.
Voice to text is very helpful.
Well, come on in and say hi. That's another thing, and sample some good vegan food. And
check out the plant, shout out to the Plant Curious app. It's Vancouver based. There's also an app in Toronto, same people who are running it. It's a great way to explore and save money too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great coupon. And you got the Hot Chocolate Festival. There's always great specials and offers and deals and things. So come on in and visit. Say hi to Alex, and you might even see me there every once in a while.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to, share the word and spread the message because, conscious living is about making different choices and, just being mindful of where we spend our money, how we treat our body, how we treat ourselves, each other, and community. You've done a great job with community there. So I thank you, Alex, for the work that you've been doing. And I appreciate you taking the time before you go in today to hop on and share what you're doing. So Eternal Abundance in Vancouver, 1025 Commercial Drive, eternalabundance.ca if you want more information. They're strong on Instagram and Facebook. Check them out. Thanks again, Alex, and I want to thank again my partner in production, Michael Kraus, on the back end so we can produce a nice show that can live in perpetuity on all the interwebs out there. My name is Marc Caron. You have been listening to Conscious Living on 100.5 CFRO in Vancouver. Until next time, take care of each other and eat well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
You have been listening to Conscious Living Radio. For free show downloads, additional information about our guests and topics, or details about upcoming programs, check us out at consciousliving.radio.org.